I learned so much reading this book. It's not just Black history, because as we know, Black history is American history, but it's sport history. I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about coaching. I learned about a lot about sports administration. And I got kind of overwhelmed thinking about putting this podcast together. Like, where would we begin? Like, so I said, I'm gonna ask the author, what would you say is the number one thing you want readers to know after finishing this book?
One, there's two things I think I wanted to do. One is I wanted to undercut this idea that somehow the University of Miami, the U, or Florida, the University of Florida, their great run in the 2000s,
Hmm.
like somehow they were the pinnacle of college football in the state of Florida. And I wanted to remind readers that Florida A&M was the original powerhouse in that state. And then two is I wanted them to think a little bit about how Black coaches managed and facilitated in creating these programs. I think there's a lot of my thinking was a lot of naturalism about this in the sense that Black athletes are somehow Black student athletes are natural athletes, and thus, of course, Florida A&M had a great program, of course. And so what that does is that it undermines the kind of coaching acumen and recruiting acumen that someone like Jay Gaither or Eddie Robinson or John Merritt or any other great Black coaches had. And it reduces them in stature when they're compared to their white counterparts, Bear Bryant or a Nick Saban in the modern sense, right? And and I think that it's very clear that one of the things I wanted to do was to make sure that Jay Gaither in particular, but Black college coaches, HBCU coaches of that generation get their kind of flowers and accolades for the kind of geniuses that they were.
And there's a word you use often in the book that growing up, it was always associated with church. You talk about sporting congregations. Dr. White, what is a sporting congregation?
A sporting congregation for me is the church was the mechanism, right? Like for Black folks in the church, like this is the way we think about organizing. So the church historically is not just a place of worship; it's a place of political activism. It's a place of music. It's a place of education. It is a multi-purpose kind of location.
Mhm.
And that we should think about athletics in the same kind of way, and that what it does is that Black college athletics, both in primarily in football but also included in basketball and other sports as well, serves as a similar kind of space that brings together athletes, coaches, administrators, fans, sports writers, right?
Media, yes, yes.
High school teachers, high school coaches, right? All this is happening, and these are the networks that are being built, and that folks like Gaither or Eddie Robinson or John Merritt, right? They're all basically pastors in this church, right? And so in their own communities, in their own areas, they are organizing um these athletic conventions, right? Like if
Yeah,
we think of them as like religious conventions,
right.
right? Like this is the way they're operating. And so the sporting congregation forced me to really think about not really just simply a biography of Gaither,
Mhm.
not just since an institutional kind of story of Florida A&M, but really thinking about the ways that all these groups intersected to create this great Black program, this dominant program that Florida A&M was, because it can't just be coaching greatness or athletes or any of these kinds or
It's
X's and
not, Dr.
O's.
White. It's not. And that's what I enjoyed reading so much. It was like a whole community and everybody contributed. And it wasn't just athletic greatness on the field and X's and O's. So many people played a part, like we said, the high school coaches, even the college professors. What was Jay Gaither's contribution to the field of physical education?
I mean, so one of the things he does is he has a master's in physical education from the Ohio State University, and one of the things that's really interesting is that Florida as a general, but Florida A&M in particular, is really building on this kind of post-war emphasis on physical education, and so they're creating a physical education program. So he's thinking about not only am I coaching these guys as the track coach or the basketball coach or the football coach, but I'm also preparing them to become physical educators at the next level. They're
Mhm.
going back into high schools. They're going back to become teachers, become principals, become high school coaches, become men in their communities, right? As pastors, as doctors, whatever it is, lawyers. They're coming to be kind of community or anchors. And so for him, the way that he's imagining this space, these space and his responsibility is so much bigger than athletics. And so what he's doing is that the school is just a vehicle. He's just in one area in which the entire HBCU landscape is functioning to train up generations of black men and women to improve their communities, to challenge segregation, and to try to make black people to have full and robust lives in an undemocratic world.